Good morning, everyone. I'm Matthew An. I am a rising junior at Rice, currently a part of Phnom Penh House Church, shepherded by Teo Che. I'm here today because earlier last week, I was baptized by Pastor Eric in the pool just outside this room. It was an incredible opportunity and an amazing experience. I felt like this past year had really been leading up to that moment, and this is my baptism testimony. Today, in a few short words, I'll be going over my journey as a Christian, some changes in my faith, and the path with Christ that I hope to walk now and in the future. So let's get started. Some context for myself. I was born in a state that produces 26% of the United States cheese. It's the Badger State, Wisconsin. But I didn't live there for long. I moved around a lot during my childhood due to my dad's job. He was in the military. And I spent most of my childhood on a small island called Okinawa. And where I learned about Christianity was mainly from my grandparents, who were Catholic, and they lived in Chicago at the time. So every few years, I would go back home for the summer, and they would teach me about Catholic principles, like who Jesus is, how to pray, and the different parts of the Bible. And that was my main exposure to Christianity at the time. And that was only once every few years. In between those periods, I would mainly not go to service and mainly not be praying. But that all changed back in middle school when I made some friends who were also Christian. And at that time, that was the main driving factor when I started asking the personal questions related to my faith. Questions like, what is faith? And why do Christians do what they do? After talking and after some time, my faith started to grow, and I really I started going to service. But then in high school, I had a negative experience with the people and other congregationists. I saw multiple people, not just students, but like adults alike, just acting like very spitefully towards each other and hatefully. And it was a negative experience for like a 14 or 15-year-old kid. So I talked to a couple of them, and I asked like what they thought of church. And their response really shocked me. It was, to them, church was not a place to share the gospel and to praise and to conduct worship, but to them it was more of just like an obligation more than anything. And it was really discouraging for me at the time when I was really just trying to find my faith. And I thought to myself, like, well, if I'm going to be a part of a body that can act like in such a negative manner, then I don't want to be a part of this body. So in my freshman year of high school, I stopped going to service, and COVID happened right after that. And I ended up not going to service for the rest of my high school career. Coming into college, things weren't much better either. My freshman year, my faith was at like an all-time low. Despite that, my grandparents still continued to pray for me and encourage me to like read the Bible and encourage me to pray. But I was like, oh, thank you, Jiman, Jipa. I appreciate it, but I didn't think much would happen. But change was in the air, and that air was very hot. It was a Houston summer, actually. Let's see. It was last August. I was on my way to lab, and I remember it was a scorching day. Like cicadas were on the tree, and they were like, psh, psh, psh. They were like buzzing, and there were like heat waves, almost like emanating on the street. And man, I was dreading that walk to my lab. It was, oof. And suddenly, I stopped, cold in my tracks, like out of the bushes almost in my periphery vision. I saw like this like bulky figure walking out. And at first, and he was like walking straight towards me. I was like, what is going on? I didn't know this person, so I wasn't initially concerned. So I did what guys normally do when you see someone you don't know, like the mutual nod of acknowledgement. Kind of goes like this. I did that, and usually it works. Like, guys just go the opposite way after that. But this guy kept coming towards me. Oh my goodness. So I was like, oh man, am I gonna get robbed at school? Oh. But luckily, it ended up being my future shepherd, Teho. And all he wanted was a conversation. And this is how the conversation kind of went, kind of like this. This is Teho, by the way. Hey. You're Matthew, right? Oh, yeah. I see you follow Phnom Penh on Instagram. Do you want to come over to my room on Friday? Oh, you know Phnom? Yeah, you can meet the rest of Phnom Penh when you get there. Rest of Phnom. Okay, for context. I thought Phnom Penh was a person at Rice. So you can imagine my surprise when he said rest of Phnom Penh, like they cut him up or something, and I was meeting only a half of him. So once we cleared the confusion, and I learned that Phnom Penh was actually like a house church, a Christian group, I agreed to go. It was like some laughter involved over the misconceptions. And that Friday, I ended up attending house church, meeting all my house church members for the first time, and I listened to the word time, and that message really resonated with me, I remember. And I would stay to see many more word times, and over time I would get to know what amazing people the members of my house church truly were. Let me give you an example. Like, for example, Teho. I thought my first impression was like a mysterious figure like lurking in the bushes. That was my first impression. But over time, I got to know that he's a very caring, very hardworking, and very impassioned Christian who really does the best for his house church, especially when he's been solo shepherding. So I'm very thankful for him. Let's see. With and through my house church, I think over time, this past year, my love for God and for Jesus has really grown. I started reading the Bible, I started praying again, and I started trying to find out what Christianity was all about. I attended Pastor Eric's Living Life 101 class this past spring. That was really fun. Like, your jokes were always on point and like acting out like faith. It's always enjoyable. And most recently, I was baptized last week. And that's been my story. But before I end this, I want to leave you all with some takeaways from my story that I hope can encourage you and bring like energy into your life. So here are the 3 things, real quick. The first thing is I hope that you all can encourage each other in your faith and in your deeds. Second, I hope you can perform acts of service and humility in any chance you get. And third, I want you to do all things in love. That last point was actually the first message of the word time that Friday when Teo invited me over. And it was actually the foundation of my faith when my grandparents were teaching me about Christianity. 1 Corinthians 16:14, do all things in love, or do everything in love. I think when I was really struggling in high school, I was very isolated and very discouraged by like what I saw in the church at the time. And I think I humbly urge you all to do differently. When I came to New Life, I was expecting a church to be somewhat similar to like what I saw back at home, but it was completely different. I've seen love and encouragement here, and I know and I pray that New Life can continue to do so. yeah, that's basically my story. I'd like to give some thanks to some people who have done a lot for me, especially in my faith journey. Pastor Eric, thank you for being so receptive on my email for baptism. It was like a day in advance, and you were like, yes. Thank you. And thank you for Living Life 101. That was a great class as well. Thank you to Pisang and Justy and the college ministry for providing such like a kind and supportive environment, and it really shows like that Christian love that I was really looking for, especially in my faith. And how can I forget my house church? Teho, Kang, Summer House Church. Hello. Thank you all for being like such a shining light in my life. I really appreciate you all. Thank you for being here. And I'd like to thank all my other house church members who aren't here and are away for the summer. And thank you all for being a great audience. I hope you have an excellent rest of your service. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Matthew.